Sheri Chaney Jones, I am so happy you're here today.
I'm excited to be here, Catherine.
Everybody is going to get the joy of learning more about you and just love you as much as I do and just how amazing you've been. I've seen you just grow up through business and you've become just an amazing person. So let's start though and have you talk about your business so people are familiar with what you do.
Absolutely. So I am all things data, helping specifically the social sector. So government, nonprofits, and social enterprises use data to solve complex social problems. And I actually do that through two businesses because one's not enough. We
Yeah,
need
of course.
two. So the first one is SureImpact, which is a B2B SaaS platform, a technology platform that helps that same sector track, measure, and communicate how they're changing lives and changing circumstances. And then I have a consulting company called Measurement Resources Company, and we work with the social sector to help them identify what data should they be collecting, making sense of the data, and adding that strategy around it. So the way I explain both companies is that if you think about your financial software, you probably have a financial software you use, and then you still hire a CPA or a CFO or something like that to help you make sense of that data. So SureImpact is the software that collects your impact data, and then Measurement Resources are the strategic advisors, if you will, who help you validate and make sense of that impact.
And just so I understand this, so is one basically deals with government and one deals with public sector or
No, we deal with all things public social sector. So we both work with the same
okay,
groups
so
of
you're just
people.
offering different services in a way.
Yes.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Perfect. Now, I have no idea where you came up with that sort of idea. I know it's been very impactful for many people. So what led you up to creating a business? I mean,
Mhm.
what was your path from, let's just say, your first job after
Sure.
college to where you are right now?
Yeah. Well, it goes even further back a little bit for me is I have always been fascinated with how we use like assessments and data to predict performance.
Mm-hmm.
I've shared this before, but I have dyslexia. And so as a child, I had it, especially around, 10, 11, was just taking so many of these tests to try to uncover what was wrong with me. And I never felt like the labels that people were putting on me, I didn't identify with those labels. So I don't know, I just became really naturally curious about how we assess things and how we use data. So all that to say, it led me to a career in industrial and organizational psychology. Most people don't know what that is, but
No.
it was really like designing selection tests and personality tests and understanding how we make high performing organizations. So that's always been a passion of mine. But luckily for me, my first job out of graduate school was it brought me back to Columbus, Ohio, and I was working with people, um, working with people who work with people that have severe and persistent mental health. And I was developing a product, which now in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I was destined to always be building products. I just don't think of myself that way. But it was a tool that was helping case managers identify what jobs these individuals could be the most successful in.
Mm-hmm.
And that one experience then led me to realize that I can use my passion for data and analytics in the social good space. Had a couple government jobs at the juvenile courts and then the Department of Aging, where I was essentially a funder of nonprofit programs, social sector programs, and evaluating the impact they were having, communicating that impact to attract more resources to these agencies. And in around 2008 timeframe, I started to get the call to help as many organizations as possible, not just the ones that I was working for. So that's when I took the big brave leap in 2010, left the comfort of a government position and started Measurement Resources.
Oh, that's fantastic. But that experience in government has come in handy for you though too, because you
Yeah.
now know how to speak the language when they need something. You just
Mm-hmm.
get it. Where for someone else it might be a much wider learning curve, I guess.
Yeah. And it also helps because I have worked in government. I mean, obviously I can communicate to our government clients. I understand how they operate, but we also serve nonprofits who need to attract money
Oh
from
yeah, yeah.
government. And so I very much know how that government funder might be thinking and how to position their data and story to attract the grants and the resources they need from those government partners.
See, so you're exactly where you need to be right now. Isn't that a fun little path you had
Yeah,
there?
yeah. And even I think back to in graduate school, or no, in undergrad, I did a master's honors thesis. In hindsight, it's, I love how life leaves these little
Absolutely.
breadcrumbs, but you don't notice them until you go back. And I was doing this experiment about, it was really around decision making. But what people were asked to do was this like community simulation that they were trying to invest money to solve a drug problem in their community and like identify different strategies. And the secret to the experiment was really, it didn't matter what they chose. They were either going to get positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, or intermediate reinforcement. And I was studying to see like, when do people stop a course of action? Anyway, but that context of what they thought they were doing is what I do now every day, all day.
That's so interesting that
Yeah.
it all came back. Oh, that's fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to go back even a little bit further and to when you were a child,
Uh-huh.
because I think a lot of these things do stem from childhood, and you just kind of brush upon a little bit, having dyslexia and things like that. That was something that kind of sparked this, wanting to know more, and then just kind of evolved into where you are today. But what did you do that was just really kind of fun and or adventurous that happened when you had no responsibility?
Yeah, I was a definite curious child. I think I knew the scientific method before I knew the scientific method. Like some of my earliest memories were, and I got in trouble for these things, but I remember coloring myself with my dad was an industrial designer, so he had all those like those markers that smelled
Oh yeah, those
permanent,
really
and
great things.
I colored myself black because I had a friend who was African American, and I wanted to know
Oh
what
my
it was like
goodness.
to be like them.
Yeah.
And another time I created. I like to go to Lake Erie, and I think, or not Lake Erie, Elm Creek here in Columbus, like a lake. And my mom said we couldn't go, and so I turned the swimming pool into. I used potting soil and water.
Oh
So
no.
this is early Sheri, like just wanting to explore things and create. I don't know. It's a strange
No,
way to be
and I
creative.
love that so much because I don't know if I did anything that advanced, but it was always like you said, and I loved it that you use the word curiosity. It's one of my favorite words. But
Yeah,
it's kind of like, if I want something, I can just make it. I'll just make it.
yeah.
Just like rest on your laurels and say, well, I guess we can't go to the lake. It's like, well, you know what? We got dirt, we got plants. I'm going to make the lake right here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, luckily that kind of, as I got older, I understood it a little better. I turned that into I love writing. I did more of it in my youth, but I wrote plays like in middle school. I'd have sleepovers and write plays and make my friends come over and act them out because it was my birthday, so you had to do it.
Absolutely. But that just shows just at a really young age, like I said, your that imagination and your invention and your curiosity were just pretty amped up.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
a pretty heavy level creativity you got going on there. That is
Yeah.
so fun. And then I have to ask too, has any of that carried over into what you do now? Do you still get that opportunity to write, or not necessarily plays, but just to write for pleasure,
Yeah.
I guess, or do fun things that kind of relate to, do you go to the lake? Because now you
I
can.
do
I
go
know
to the
how hard
lake.
you can.
My parents bought a house on the lake, so I go visit them there. But I do. So my creative writing these days really is just journaling. Journaling is like that's my mental health. That's
Oh,
how
I love that.
So journaling is really important to me in my kind of personal sanity practice. I did write a book. It's a nonfiction book, but
Yes.
I did write a book,
And
so that was a lot of fun.
it is called, so everyone knows.
Impact and excellence.
Nice. Nice.
These days, I wish I did more writing, but I don't have time. But even the work we do, I find it so creative. It's not creative in, like you work with designers and artists who make beautiful marketing materials, but we have to figure out how to tell a story with data. So there's some creativity there, right? To see the pattern. Like I look at, numbers and data and information for the patterns in the story and the so what. Like that to me it's really fun.
I love that you brought that up, because if you didn't, I was going to, because I just did interview a young woman who is heavy into data, and she has an art degree, but she loves it because of the stories that the data tells. And I think, yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that's exactly that's to me. And when she said that, I was like, well, that explains me why I always like to know the details on some stuff. Like I will fight you on a spreadsheet if I have to make it, but I love spreadsheets because they do tell the story of what your business what it's doing, or it might be, some data on your own health, but it all just really tells a story. And to kind of, that's just for left brain people. It's not necessarily true, because if you really think about it in a different way, it's telling you something about something. Kind of like you said, what was it? The so what about it?
Yeah. That's so what. Like actually, that's my team knows that. Like I'm kind of known for reading a report that we put together, and I just will look at them and go, well, what's the so what? Like,
yeah.
Is it at the bottom line? Like, why should I care?
Tell me the story about it. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, and probably a lot of business owners can relate to that too, because in many cases too, it's people like your accountant will give you your numbers for the year. Initially you look at that bottom line. Okay, how do we do? Yeah. And then you'll go back up and, tell yourself the story in the data. Like, okay, it's up, or, and why did that happen? Or what, and you have to kind of relive some things and be curious and all of that. So that's a absolutely wonderful example of how, we do use right brain activities every day, because we have to make things make sense for us. What does this matter? Otherwise, it's just a bunch of numbers. And when people just kind of disregard it, say, I don't understand this. It's like, no, you're not giving yourself enough credit here, I don't think.
Yeah.
Do you find that because of that, you have clients that really do struggle with that understanding?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the fun, and I say that word serious, about the work that we do. And that is that the people we work with went into their chosen professions because they have a heart and a passion for the population they serve. So whether it's someone who's helping people get out of poverty, or, affordable housing, or solving homelessness, or, all the host of different great, amazing people that we get to interact with every day. And so we get to be that analytical side of their brain, so they can, serve the people and bring the solutions to these complex social problems. So we understand it's not their love language. Mine. But we get to present that information and data in a way that it allows them to do their job better. Yeah. And I like to take the heart away from them.
Well, and I'm going to add that too, because we were talking a little bit about just business in general before we started recording. And I am 100% for hiring people that are great at stuff like that. It's like you try to be as good as you possibly can in everything when you're a business owner, but sometimes it's there, and there's no shame in handing it off to somebody who's even better than you to help you with some of those things. Like, yeah, could I sit down and figure out all these numbers? Yes, I probably could, but the time it's going to take, the knowledge that I can bring to the table is not going to equal a company like yours, or having someone on your team that where just numbers is their love language. And like, oh, well, if you can't see the story, let me tell you the story, and they So, all right. So you have some daily journaling time, but is there anything else that you do that, is kind of your little break, just to, step away from the numbers for a little bit, something that's just completely different, completely irresponsible?
Yeah. Well, you know this about me. I have 4 children, so there isn't a whole lot of time
there.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of time for complete responsibility, but I do love being a mom. And I think because I'm a working mom, I find a lot of joy in supporting my kids, like during the season. And I just had one go off to college. And just, I know it's not forever. Like this season of life being
Right.
a mom. So in a lot of ways, enjoying life and playing with my kids, and they're a little too old to be played with now, but supporting them in their creative endeavors or their athletic endeavors
Mhm.
is really it. I don't know if that's allowed to bring me joy, but it does.
Are any of them really involved with numbers, or are they kind of like all over the place? Because it always seems like kids always just are so different.
Yeah. My kids are, well, what's interesting is my oldest, who just went to college, all my kids are athletic. Like that's kind of that consumes their lives, is their sports and activities. School is, they're fine in school, but no one's like a, no, uh, that's not their love,
Right.
always. But my older son, he's now in college to study computer science and software engineering. And
Very nice.
he's always been very like back, I think back to even when he was a little kid, he was always playing with Legos and building things. And so he kind of, I think, has maybe that similar wiring of
Mm-hmm.
looking for the patterns. But because he's a boy, it manifested
How
itself more
how to
in,
build something, that whole.
yeah, more in the tactical, where I'm more in the brain space of like putting pieces together, where he, I think, was more in the puzzle of building things.
Right, right. And just to bring a little air to the conversation of grades and things like that, that doesn't necessarily mean everything, because it's, I always
Yeah.
find it kind of, in hindsight, I find it very amusing that I was graded for biology, for example, and that was not my strength, but you still had to do well enough in order to get
Yeah.
to the next grade. So that whole process is just, like I said, kind of, again, in hindsight, very fascinating. But again, I want my daughter to have great grades, so whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever that passing moment was, I just had right there.
You're like, don't listen to this.
Uh, just my random thoughts. Uh, were you athletic in college, or were you just more of a student?
No, so I was a basketball player. That was my sport, and even today, actually, that's something I do that's fun too. I coach my daughter's basketball team.
I didn't know.
Uh,
It's so great.
yes, so yeah, I played basketball, loved basketball, still love basketball. I did not play. I played intramural in college, but I wanted to go to a big school. I wasn't good enough to play basketball for like Ohio State, so I
Oh,
just did it for fun. Yeah,
well, that makes it even, I think, almost nicer. If
yeah,
you do it for fun
oh
and
yeah,
there's no stress put on it.
yeah.
Right. That's really awesome. Anything else that you do that is kind of an unplugging thing, or is that kind of your, for now,
No,
all consuming thing? Because my follow up question too is going to be, I know how busy you are, and maybe can you offer any sort of advice to women who are moms and business owners or leaders? How do you kind of keep an even keel? And I say that knowing there are times for crazy, and
yeah.
that's just part of it. But do you have like little escape advice for people?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things that I think, and it's how I know you, but it's been really important for my journey, is that, especially being a business owner and a mom, and I started my company, I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and then had 2 more babies. So, there are very long periods of my company where I had infants and babies, and
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
I learned really quickly that I had to go find a group of women who were just similar to me, because talking to the moms at the playground that didn't have businesses, that wasn't working for me.
Feelings.
It just wasn't like, because I couldn't relate to what they were dealing with, and I felt really weird. And so
Yeah.
I found my group of people in the National Association of Women Business Owners, NABO. That's how you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
And that having that group of friends or peers made my life feel normal, right?
Oh, I love that. Yes.
It because my circle were dealing with the same things that I was dealing with, so I didn't feel, it made it not feel as stressful, because it was like, oh, we're all doing this, this is normal. Like, in my house we joke, it's a Tuesday, I'm putting out a customer fire and talking to an investor, and oh, I got to go to this kid's school event to meet the teacher night. Like, it's just a Tuesday, and everyone's life is different, and this is our life. And so normalizing that really helped me. It was just normalizing my experience.
I love that. And I think I'm just going to end it on that, because that is some of the best advice you could possibly give. I think just find somebody else who can make this feel normal. Because
Yeah.
there are a lot of us out there, and we welcome
Yes.
to the conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Sheri, I have really, really enjoyed this, and we will have to get together to talk even longer. But I appreciate you so much for, doing this, and I have thoroughly enjoyed just your company grow, you grow, just to see you just achieve more and more things. It's been really wonderful just having you in my circle and helping me keep things normal too.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Catherine.